Protect your business from envious attacks. So I want to address an elephant in the room due to my most recent analyses eliciting some polarizing comments and feedback. For one, I was receiving a lot of comments where people were stating like, well, beauty isn't always the reason that someone is attacked. And I was taken aback by it because my analyses, especially relating to the Valeria Marquez's case, was more so highlighting her being an exceptional businesswoman and an exceptional businesswoman at such a young age and super accomplished. But obviously, it's a no-brainer that she's clearly beautiful as well. But I also saw some other people combating, that feedback and stating, well, honestly, we need to stop acting like beauty isn't enough or isn't a valid enough, reason as to why people will physically attack an innocent woman, and less alone her being a beautiful woman who also owns a business and a successful business at that. And I just felt compelled to come up here and address the elephant in the room. The reason why a lot of people, especially a lot of women who have experienced pushback, the reason why they talk about, this concept of beauty envy a lot, and that's also a separate excerpt in the book Green Eyes, and I have several analyses talking a little bit more about beauty envy in particular. But the reason why a lot of these women are so passionate about bringing this topic up is because they have experienced exceptional hardship, because other people internalize their physical attractiveness as them always having things easy in life. And with Valeria Marquez being one of the muses for this analysis today, as well as Selena Quintanilla. So for people who don't know, Selena Quintanilla not only was an exceptional artist, right? She was super talented. Of course, she was beautiful, but she also had her own business. She had her own boutique. The reason why a lot of attractive women, I at least encourage them to start their own business, is because their business is their baby. It's their safety net. It's their security blanket. Because a lot of the time, if we're just going to be honest, people who deem a particular person as physically attractive in a professional capacity specifically, there is a subconscious tendency to make things more difficult for that person, particularly when you're dealing with someone who is insecure, who is battling with self-esteem issues, or they're constantly ego tripping and power tripping. Another thing that we have to be honest about is there are certain people who will strive for positions of power and leadership so that they can lash out on people who remind them of individuals who victimized them when they were younger, who bullied them when they were younger, or people who they wish they looked like and they just never had, that same attention or affection as the person who they were exposed to in their younger years, in their developmental years, right? So a lot of people haven't reconciled those experiences and they take it out on innocent individuals that they come across. Now, another red flag to address, and another elephant in the room, I should say, especially when we talk about beauty envy in particular, and it presenting itself in a professional dynamic. A lot of people who battle with beauty envy, more so they internalize it when they're in the presence of someone who they deem to be attractive, or they envy the attention that this person is receiving from others, or maybe they've been watching them on social media from afar, whatever. A lot of the time what they will do is they will purposely hire the person who they're envious of to fire them, or to embarrass them, to place unrealistic expectations on them, make them appear as if they're inadequate. And this could be better understood and addressed by actually revisiting the excerpt in the book Green Eyes titled The Malicious Mentor, which is actually an envious archetype that breaks this down. How there are certain envious individuals who will seek out the person who they're envious of under the guise of wanting to counsel them, to lead them, to guide them, but the sole purpose is to sabotage their progress. So if we put this into the context of someone dealing with this because someone is envious of the way that they look, a lot of the time they're going to go above and beyond to make sure you do not reach your professional goals, because they've already internalized that you have enough favor in your life. You're already attractive. People already deem you as attractive, so you don't deserve to also be successful in, this particular profession. You don't deserve to be successful in this particular, occupation. So this is the reason why when I speak to you all, especially on coaching sessions, I strongly encourage you to pick up some kind of side hustle for yourself. In the book In the Lion's Den, Navigating Systems of Power, it also breaks this down in a grand scheme of things, right? Where it emphasizes the significance of ownership and autonomy. even if it's on a minor scale. And what this does is it keeps you from internalizing events such as this, where people can pull the rug from under you or set you up to fail. These are additional excerpts in the book Green Eyes as well that you can revisit. And it also gives you something to fall back on in the event of these envious attacks, because they do run rampant. And in one of my most recent lives, someone was just like, well, what do I do if I keep getting fired? And I told them in the live, well, it's probably because you need to start implementing some strategy. You can't control how another person runs their ship, right? You can't control how someone runs their business, their corporation. But what you can control is making sure that you're not completely out of luck, or you don't have anything whatsoever to fall back on in the face of these envious attacks. And to break this down in some additional detail, I'm actually going to read from a couple of excerpts in the book In the Lion's Den, Navigating Systems of Power. Entitled Entities. When you find yourself in a position within a system or organization that masks its corruption with achievements and accolades, resist the temptation to grow complacent. Once the initial honeymoon phase fades and the true nature of the environment begins to surface, start preparing your exit strategy. Any entity that prioritizes performance and profit over the well-being of its people is unlikely to take accountability for its actions or make meaningful efforts to correct its wrongs. When your turn inevitably comes to experience the consequences of this entitlement, don't assume you can bring about meaningful change. Systems like these are often beyond saving. The last excerpt I want to read from is titled Hope for Alliance But Never Expect It, and it reads, when entering professional environments, one can hope for collaboration but should not expect it. Few things are as destabilizing as betrayal, and the best way to guard against such devastation is to accept a difficult truth. People are capable of unexpected, even unprovoked actions. By acknowledging this reality, individuals can prepare themselves emotionally and strategically, reducing the likelihood of being blindsided. Those who internalize this understanding often implement preemptive damage control, mitigating risk before they escalate. So both of those excerpts describe, first and foremost, when you are coming up against a quote-unquote entitled entity, one that is infamous for pulling the rug from under people, setting people up to fail. But additionally, from the excerpt that I just now read from, it talks about when you come up against these particular systems, why it's so important to not internalize these experiences, but instead always have a plan B, plan C, plan D available for you in the face of these attacks. And one of the main sources of a backup plan being you having some kind of side hustle or business. And it doesn't have to be on a major scale. It can be a minor scale. But some kind of side hustle or business endeavor, that allows you to have 100% autonomy and ownership, right? Something that someone can't take away from you. This is super important, especially when you find yourself coming up against these envious attacks and it's starting to affect your livelihood, right? Your income. And one of the main protective measures that you can implement is simply establishing a side hustle for yourself or some kind of entrepreneurial endeavor where you have complete autonomy and ownership. But it's also important for me to prepare you for the pushback, because starting this endeavor or this side hustle is just the beginning. The rest of the work is going to be dedicated to you protecting it at all costs. It's important to understand that when you successfully maneuver around these sabotage attempts, whether it be by a malicious mentor or an entitled entity, you have to understand that your vindication is perceived as a personal offense. And this ties to the envious component, or the relentless nature of an envious person rather, and why they oftentimes are so relentless in their pursuit to conquer their target of envy and successfully sabotage everything that they built and that they're trying to work on. Because the goal of setting you up to fail, pulling the rug from under you, just to name a few tactics, the goal of it was to keep you at a particular level. It was to keep you stifled. It was designed to keep you stagnant. So when you break through those barriers or you rise above it and you start to reach your fullest potential, they internalize that as a personal offense. So make sure that you have protective measures in place when it comes to your business. And in my most recent analysis, where I was talking a little bit about Valeria Marquez's case, and this is one of the reasons why I felt compelled to make this separate analysis, but I stated that for my business babes with physical location specifically, Do your best to book suites, salons that have surveillance and security in place. Also, I strongly encourage you guys to book suites that have, a metal detector before people walk in, or they have a concierge, a front desk, where the desk employees can act as a buffer. They can send you a notification of who's present to meet you, or they can hold items and gifts for you on your behalf so that you have time to vet out who is coming to visit you, right? Or you can give them that stamp of approval. Yes, this person is clear to come up to my shop or come up to my suite, or this person is not clear. I did not know that they were coming to visit me today. They don't have an appointment, etc., right? Now, another thing that I want to mention for individuals who may not have a physical location, you may be conducting your business affairs digitally, right? Electronically. Your code of conduct, for lack of better words, or what's going to save you is documentation. Make sure that when you're communicating with people, you have emails, right? So you have something to reference. Another thing that's super important is contractual agreements. There's a whole excerpt in the book In the Lion's Den, Navigating Systems of Power, dedicated to successfully navigating contractual agreements. But your best bet when it comes to partnerships or some kind of collaboration opportunity is making sure you understand the legal lay of the land and you have some kind of contractual documentation in place to cover your ends. Now, the rest of the details in helping you navigate or even start up your endeavor or your side hustle of choice, especially if you don't know where to get started, I can actually provide you with assistance in a coaching session. So I will start to establish coaching sessions dedicated to people who are interested in starting up their side hustle and their entrepreneurial endeavor. And what we'll do is we'll collaborate to figure out what your interests are, what your hobbies are, and what your strong suits are so that you can get something up and running, so you have something to fall back on. Because ownership and autonomy is super important, okay? So I'll be sure to plug that resource on my community post, so be sure to be on the lookout for that. Be on the lookout for that, the flyer and things like that, the details. But additionally, I want to give you all a heads up that I will be doing a Zoom conference really soon in the next couple of weeks. It probably will even be like in the next few months or so, but I will make sure to include the flyer at the end of this video, where I will be dedicating my time in the Zoom conference talking specifically about office politics, quote unquote office politics and workplace dynamics, for those who are interested in bringing their questions, their comments, and their concerns in a more intimate capacity. And it's a safe space for you to talk about some of the things that you've been experiencing professionally, and we can work through it as a collective together, or it could just be you and I having a conversation one-on-one, and you just come up and you ask your questions, and I answer it by providing some resources as well as some additional details. Okay, so that's all that I have for this analysis today. I want to thank you all so much for tuning in, but of course, I want to hear you all's comments, opinions, and perspectives in the comment section below. I look forward to speaking to you guys in the next one, babes. Take care.